As everybody knows, and as you know, the training, the sessions this afternoon diving into IoT from hardware to connectivity to managed services to the device management, and then up to the platform. There's a lot of disparate technologies that have to come together to make a true IoT solution. And then when you get into an industrial company and you're going to bring that all to bear, you have to know your business and your business processes very well. And you have to know your customer and your customer processes very well. So it takes a unique individual to say, hey, I'm going to sign up for that and to take that on and drive that within the organization. And that's what Roberto's done in his organization. So, so again, thanks for joining us, Roberto.
My pleasure.
And we're just going to keep this as an open dialogue. I think maybe starting out just a little bit about the pallet business and a little bit about your history and your journey up to this point with utilizing and thinking about IoT.
Absolutely. Let me start explaining a little bit what pallet pooling is, right? We don't manufacture pallets, we rent them. We are the second largest pallet pooler in North America. And basically, when you are a manufacturer or a large CPG company, you normally have two options, right, to ship your products. You can use what we call one-way whitewood pallets, or you can actually rent the pallets. Our model offers many advantages for the manufacturers, for the CPG companies, from an environmental point of view, from cost point of view, better quality asset. And it's a model that started in the 90s in the US and have been growing very rapidly. So the manufacturers and the CPG companies, they ship the product to the Walmarts, the Costco's of the world, all the distributors and retailers. And what we do, they ship it in our pallets, and what we do, we pick up the pallets then in the distribution points and take it to our depots. We have a very large network of depots across North America. We bring the pallets back, we repair them, and we give them to other CPG companies or manufacturers. And this is a model that repeats many, many times. There are around 2 billion would be pallets in US alone. It's a large market. Not all of them are moving. Some of them are what we call captive. But many of them, hundreds of millions, are moving all day through our networks. And basically, it's pallets keep moving the consumer product industry. And that's what we support, yeah.
Great, yeah, thanks for that. And so as you started thinking about your business and, and when I talk to, industrial customers, there's, I would say you could categorize 3 different reasons why a company would implement IoT. Number one is just want to optimize your own assets. Maybe number 2 is increase customer satisfaction, and number 3 is to create a new revenue model. As you started looking at the technologies and what it could do, was it one of those, 2 of those? Is it evolving? Yeah.
I think it's the 3 of them. I will do, customer satisfaction is important, getting efficiencies in our network, like cost savings, but also like revenue opportunities, right? We start this journey with IoT around almost 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. And initially, for us, it's about efficiencies in our network, right? We were looking to protect our assets. Obviously, we have millions of pallets going around the US, and naturally, we lost some of them. And what we try to do with IoT is really track the pallets around. That's what we are looking for. We are interested to know where the pallets land. We're interested to know how long they keep in the different networks and different customers. So there is, one of those reasons is efficiencies in our network, but also pallets are, you call it a dumb asset, right? They move product, but they don't give you too much information, right? Like we see an opportunity in the future, have IoT evolves, to actually create these smart pallets that, besides moving products, can give you a lot of data. I think the number is around 95% of the products are moving pallets, plus 95%. And imagine if you have a supply chain that basically is connected through pallets, and those pallets are giving you all the time information about, temperature, location, humidity, pressure, anything, right? Like there's a lot of environment information that you can get. You add all that data, and suddenly you have, a great insights of the supply chain. You basically put lights on the supply chain. I think that's very interesting, and I think this is a revenue opportunity in the future as that evolved more. And for our customers, obviously, they have better visibility, and I think it will impact the customer satisfaction as well. So I think it's the three of them. Yeah.
Sure, that's great. And you had mentioned that your pallets, are moving all over the place. They're moving indoors and outdoors into facilities that you own and you don't own. And you said you've been, kind of looking at this for 5 years. Yeah. Maybe just a little bit of history of some of the technologies you've looked at and some of the technologies that, at the edge that you're looking at today.
Yeah, I think we have played with, I would say, almost all technologies, from LP1 to cellular, Bluetooth, you name it, and we keep playing it. I think it's a evolving conversation. Sometimes you think, this is a technology that is going to really make it, and then you see something happen here that is really interesting. So one thing that we learn is that we need to keep our options open. And there are different business cases, right? There's some business cases that you really are interested in capturing a lot of information, I think. That's gonna be the business case around. So you are looking for some specific technology, and there's probably some business cases that you wanna know when the asset appear and disappear. And for that one, another technology works. So we really look at different connectivities, different hardware options, even from software point of view. I don't think there's something that you say this is the only option. We keep our options open, so I would say, yeah. Sure, great.
As we talk about business models and data, and naturally you just think, well, it's a pallet. What data can you get from that? Mm-hmm. But ultimately, when you start getting into this and start capturing, there's a lot of data that can be captured around a location and the environment around the pallet. How do you decide what's the most important data and vet through that to actually help drive the ROI and the right business decisions?
So analytics are going to be a few years ahead of us, right? Like, now we are, for us, probably the most important information now, the most important data is location, right, at this point, right? We want to know where the pallets are to understand potential leakage points in our network. But how, technology evolves, in the future, you probably say, well, temperature is going to be important. The rules around the FDA, around tracking food and food safety are tying, are like getting a little more demanding. And you say, well, more companies are going to look into that, right? Like, could I track my avocados from Michoacan in Mexico to my Costco store? Right now, that's just a fragmented network, how you track temperature. Can you have actually consistency about tracking that in the future? How much value is on that, right? So I think data, it will continue evolving. I think we still are some years ahead to actually really grab it and
you mentioned location, and obviously working together, we're working with all kinds of interesting technologies with location, and we hear a lot is I need GPS. And need to have this, and in this use case, and a lot of use cases, that location testing is really interesting, because if you think about the life of a pallet and where a pallet goes, the majority of time GPS just is not going to work, because you're inside a building, you're moving inside a container, you're not getting that location. So the ability to actually do, and look at other technologies as they're evolving, if it's Wi-Fi sniffing, if it's cellular triangulation, is positioning over LTE. There's some really interesting technologies and things that we've been testing and using. So one of the things that I spent a lot of time in is really understanding the business use case and how accurate does your tracking need to be? How close does it need to be? And there's multiple uses. If you're inside a factory and somebody wants to find that, down to the 5 meter space, then it's a different system that we have to put together. And I suspect that in your use case, there's different requirements and needs as far as accuracy level, how often you do location in all your scenarios. So how are you creating the requirements, and how are you working with your partners to help define what is the bare minimum need and what the dream is?
Got it. It's interesting, right? Because when we start, we thought every device have to have GPS, right? And we're going to put GPS in all the devices, and then we start to test, and we find out that GPS doesn't work in many cases, right? Like our pallets moving trucks that has a lot of metals, and sometimes they are stuck on mountains of product, and GPS doesn't work well, and in some cases it works great, right? When the pallets are outside and lost in some backyard, you will see them. But we found out, we start with GPS and we say, there are solutions, right? Like Wi-Fi, cellular location, things like that, and we start experimenting with those, and we thought, well, this actually work very well and are more effective from cost point of view. So at the end, what we find is that we don't need so much precision in some of our use cases, and we were okay, and we can take 100 meters or so, and we say we are fine with that. And it's a combination, right? So let's play with what happens if we actually combine both of them, or 3 of them, and see what we get with better analytics. And that's where probably we are going forward. When you talk about other use cases like inside of a warehouse, you probably want even more precision, right? But those are different things, right? So I think it changes depending on the use case. For locating the pallets specifically, we don't need too much precision. We're fine with that, and I think a combination of technologies works well.
Sure. So as you're working through your, through this, for the next 5 years, obviously, as we think about all the aspects of IoT, it's really, unimaginable that you could actually hire all of those skills and have a team that could actually do every aspect of IoT. As you think about partnering, as you think about bringing in the right partners, and for the group, what are some of the things that you're thinking about on your selection process, and how you pick a partner and how you bring them in, and kind of and obviously, and then what areas do you feel are very important to your business that you say, hey, I need to hire this skill and need to have it internal?
Yeah, I think. In general, IoT is an evolving conversation, and you require, as we test, we learn, and we incorporate those learnings. So normally, it has to be a partnership relation. It have to, we both are going to learn from what we are doing, and our deployments are every time bigger, right? And we need to know that we're partnering with people that can manage the growth. We need to know that we can trust, right? And then for us, we are going to develop together some things that are proprietary, right? And we need to be sure that we have the right partners in that sense, right? That they are going to respect information as well. We are a private company, so normally we don't share too much about what we do internally. So that's, that's important. Yeah.
Sure. Great. Ken, if you're around, we probably would be open for a couple questions here in a bit if you want to do that. So if you want to start, if anybody's has a question, just raise your hand and then we'll take them.
Scott, I'm everywhere. I'm always around. So if you have questions, just put your hands up.
Yeah, put your hands up and then we'll get to those. Oh, go ahead.
I just have a quick question regarding tracking at a factory. What would be the best solution besides Bluetooth beacons?
Yeah, so we're having a hard time hearing up here. So it's just, well, maybe you could.
Okay. Yeah. What would be your recommended tracking solution in a factory when you had to be tracking, parts? Let's say that it's an automotive manufacturing facility, and you had to track the parts. What would be the recommended solution outside Bluetooth beacons? Because some customers do not like that because of interference.
Sure, so let me just repeat, make sure I understand. So what kind of a recommended solution for tracking inside a warehouse for tracking the pallet down to a tight accuracy? Some of the
other than Bluetooth.
Other than Bluetooth, yeah. So it's interesting, in Bluetooth as the money, they mentioned earlier, Bluetooth 5.0 is coming out. I'll take a first shot at this and feel free to jump in. As we look at some of the sub-gigahertz technologies, if it's LoRa or if it's some other technology, we're finding that the longer range penetrating in through aluminum cans and penetrating is actually a good technology. And the challenge is not only saying, okay, how do I actually track this pallet to the corner of this warehouse, but when I get over to it, how can I figure out which pallet is there? If they're 5 tall and they're 10 deep, do I need to be able to ping it and have a light come on, or do I need to have a beep so I can actually track right to the particular one? And so there's some of those technologies that we're working with in the sub gigahertz that actually work very well in that instance. And again, as you get closer, you could do some near field technologies. So we're seeing a combination of, hey, if you just want to know the corner that it's in, then and if you got enough, and if you control the facility, then you can actually do that with Wi-Fi or with Bluetooth. If you need less gateways, you're looking at some of the more of the sub gigahertz type technologies. So. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No,
all right.
You covered.
All right, any other questions? Go ahead and put your hand up and I will attempt to get back there to you.
Yeah. So
scratch your nose. I'm going to assume that you're asking a question.
I'm going to go ask a question then. Yeah. So as we think about moving forward into next steps as you talk through this, what obviously you're talking to a lot of technologies and seeing things. Are there some technologies that you're seeing that are just totally different today than they were 5 years ago, that gives you the promise and makes you feel like, hey, we really can solve this?
When we start, we thought that some solutions were really, these are going to be very cheap. They're going to cover all the U.S. We're going to be done. So, and then everything keep changing. I will not put my money in just one. Sure. I think, like I said, we need to keep the options open. I'm still curious about what is going to happen. What I would say is that from when we start to now, the connectivity cost is dropping significantly. The modems continue dropping significantly. And for our business case, that is really important. And I think that is very encouraging, right? Like, I would like to see millions and millions the pallets with IoT technology. I think that will be amazing for the supply chain. Sure. And I don't think probably it's going to be only one kind of connectivity or technology. The answer, I think, is going to be a combination, in my opinion, my limited knowledge. But I think years from now it's going to be very exciting if we can create this light to the supply chain, so we actually bring all these efficiencies.
Sure. Yeah, we're seeing, obviously, you're hearing a lot about 5G, you're hearing about LTM, narrowband IoT, the LoRa. We're finding that, obviously LTEM is already 5G ready. So, it's there. It's just going to get better and more enhanced, and the power capabilities are just going to get better. So if you think about, when we went from third generation to fourth generation, or it's the second generation to third and then to fourth, they had to really had to shut down the 3G and the 2G networks to actually utilize the 4G. Well, 5G isn't going to cause 4G to shut down, so it's just going to actually enhance it and make it better. We're finding anything that's moving indoors and outdoors, moving around, North America from Canada to Mexico, the LTM network is up and running, and we're finding that very promising. You have a question over there?
Question over here. Yeah.
Hi, Scott. Hi, Roberto. Roberto, can you quantify in terms of dollars the cost to your business of lost or stolen pallets? How big is this opportunity?
No, good question. Like I said, we're a private company, so we don't share those details, but this is significant for us. And there is value there, right? But there is no value there. I will say this: there is no value there that you will justify to tag all our assets. I think we can do it with a sample of assets to actually and get meaningful information to reduce our losses that are very important in our industry. The pallet losses is one of the key things we need to attack. So it's significant. I cannot share too much detail, but I believe the most value probably is going to create on top of the pallet when actually you can create data that actually can help our customers, right? Like when you talk about the large CPG companies. A pallet cost is relatively very small versus what you put on top of it, right? So I think that is probably where more value is going to be created, in my opinion.
Can't see Ken, where'd he go? Anything else? Keep going?
Hey, I'm just looking for hands, unless you want to wrap up.
Because we're seeing a very similar, as we work with customers out there, getting the, trying to actually stop the loss, no matter if it's in the pallet industry or if it's in the construction industry or wherever it is a great use case. But ultimately, trying to actually optimize that asset and actually use the asset more efficiently, creating more turns, moving the asset, making sure it's used at the proper times is a very good ROI for a lot of customers in multiple industries. No matter what industry you're in, think about this asset that's on your balance sheet, and if you could actually use it, just 20 to 30% more often, actually get it to the right place at the right time. If it's no matter if it's a heavy equipment rental piece of equipment or some construction or a pallet that's in the pooling, that's utilization. And then as we talked about, is there a way to get environmental data around whatever your asset is, so you know what the condition is, and so you can do some preventive maintenance, or you can actually help the supply chain. I don't know, there's some astronomical number out there of how much food is wasted through the supply chain, and how can we solve that? We're going to save world hunger. That's what we need to solve.
Yeah.
So,
and you mentioned it. That's a good example. I think it's over $80 billion in food wasted in the supply chain every year in the U.S. alone. So, more than the pallets that are lost, if you can, improve that a little bit through better asset tracking and temperature tracking and environmental imaging, right? There's a lot of potential there. So.
Right. Good. Well, in wrapping up, what advice would you give to an industrial company that's saying we have assets, we'd like to use them better, we want to delve into this space and they haven't? Is there some advice through your scars and through your experience that you might want to give?
So I would say patience and manage stakeholders. I mean, everybody wants to move quickly, but sometimes it's a bigger change, so it takes time. And I would say it's like, be patient and manage your stakeholders well. And like I say a few times, keep your options open, I would say. Don't
Great.
put all your baskets in one bed, or your eggs in one basket, sorry.
Right. Well, again, really appreciate you taking the time to come
Absolutely.
down here in Fort Lauderdale. I'm sure it's a little warmer here than where you came from,
pleasure.
and just appreciate that. And we're going to wrap it up.
All right, folks, please, a round of applause.
Thank you.
While